Hey, what's up guys, it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel. I deeply apologize for the really questionable setup we have today. Also why I'm speaking a little bit quieter than I normally do in my videos. I'm filming in my apartment community space, but it's really so awkward because my phone's like propped up on my bag facing, like the back facing the window, because that's the only way I'm gonna get good lighting, but it literally looks like I'm filming the people that are walking by, so I hope that they don't think I'm a flipping psychopath. And if you're looking from that direction, I definitely look crazy because you can't really see my phone, so it looks like I'm just facing the window, like sitting in an office chair facing the window. So I just really hope and pray no one decides to walk by for however long it takes for me to film this video. So it has obviously been a really long time since I have posted. I apologize for the delay, and the delay being like 10 months, you know, almost a year. No biggie. It has been such a crazy, eventful year with so many big life changes. While my YouTube channel is a way for people to get to know me and learn from my experiences that I go through, it's mainly served as, you know, a video diary so that I can look back on what I was experiencing at what stage in my life and how I felt during those events. Obviously, a year is a very long time for a story time, so that's why I wanted to fit in a video right now before it got any longer that I waited and I like forgot certain things that happened. That was such a long intro, it's like I forgot how to flipping do this. Basically, this video is giving you guys a summary of what my life has been like over the past year since my last video. So I believe the last video on my channel was talking about graduating from college. During that summer, I was in Seattle, and my routine basically just consisted of working some days at the boxing gym. I was thrifting a lot and doing markets, hanging out with my boyfriend, my cat, my friends. It was so long ago, but from what I remember, it was like a pretty chill summer. However, I do remember feeling such a sense of urgency and excitement to just get out of Seattle. I have harbored such negative views about Seattle, and I feel like a large part of it was what I went through during junior year, and I felt like, oh, me being in this environment, I can't do it anymore. It's like almost triggering to be here. Looking back, I definitely took that free time for granted, and I'll explain that given where I'm at right now. But I really just had so much to be grateful for at the time that I, didn't really consider because I was just so excited to get the heck out of there. So essentially counting down the days till I moved to Florida, and I moved to Florida on August 30th. I was the only one moving at first. My boyfriend did go with me for the first week just to help me settle in, get things set up, like my bed, figure out the apartment situation, but he did end up leaving after the first week and a half or so because he had to finish one more quarter left at UW. When I got here, I was just so excited about the apartment. There is genuinely so many amenities here and it's so beautiful. That first week literally felt like I was living in a resort. There was a pool, there was a lazy river, which I saw directly from my window. They have several gyms and they all have really great brand new equipment, and I was the first person that lived in my unit. It's a brand new apartment building. Nearing the end of that week, my boyfriend and I decided to visit a few animal shelters in the area. The reason being that our cat Flash passed away last year. I was just so worried about Midnight, who went from having, someone he was super close with and spent time growing up with to now having no one and not knowing why, especially because I was going to start working away from home full time. My boyfriend wasn't going to be there. I didn't want him to experience a large majority of the day without anyone and be super bored. So we decided to adopt another cat. This one is a girl. Her original name was Chevy because they found her in a Chevy truck, but we switched her name over to Pumpkin because she has a few orange colors on her and it was fall when we got her. I can make an entire other video talking about this, like getting a new pet after the loss of one that you had before. So I will save that for another time, but yeah, got a new cat. Next, we get to what immediately happened after I dropped Connie off at the airport a week and a half after I arrived in Florida. Oop, I forgot to mention a trigger warning. Okay, trigger warning. This story does not end well for anyone really, but especially one person. So just skip ahead if you don't want to hear it because it's really messed up. So Connie had a super early morning flight, so I literally have to drop him off at the airport at like 4 a.m. or something ridiculous like that. So it's super dark, so I have my lights on, and as I'm driving, I just start seeing random car debris on the ground. I'm going super slow, just avoiding it, because I'm like, this is so weird. What is all this debris doing here? Then I see a car pulled over to the side. I see a truck on the road, and about 20 to 50 feet from the car, I saw what I believed to be a deceased human being. I stay away from horror movies. Like, I don't have a lot of exposure to really gruesome looking individuals. So seeing that without having like any prior exposure, fake or not, was even more mind-boggling. I'm really trying to not go too much in details out of respect for the person who did pass away, but it was a very gruesome sight to see. He just no longer really looked human anymore because of how much skin was off his face. And as I'm driving by it, I'm like, oh my gosh, did I just see that? Am I making it up somehow because it's late? I just dropped off my boyfriend. I'm alone right now. Did I just somehow in my mind make up that scene? As soon as I get to my apartment, I immediately call my boyfriend. I'm like, this is what I think I saw. I have no idea what to do. And he advises me to call the police because he assures me that I'm not going to get in trouble, even if what I saw just, you know, didn't exist and I was just making it up because that's what I thought I saw, you know what I mean? So I call the police, I show them what I witnessed, and I tell them my route so they know where to go. We hang up. A little while later, they call me back, and at this point, it's getting lighter out. So the traffic control highway person, I don't know what it's called, but they call me and they say, hey, do you mind coming back to the scene? I was like, yeah, sure, okay, because like, what am I gonna do, say no? And I asked them, so was what I saw correct? Like, is there a deceased body there? And they're like, oh, no. So we just need you to come back because it's not there. I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like super confused because I was like, oh, really? Like I must have just been making it up. Like, okay, like at least no one's hurt and it's fine. So I'm driving back and what I see there is not what I was expecting to see or what I was told I was going to be witnessing, because traffic is stopped both sides of the road. I have never seen so many cop cars in my entire life. There were like literally over 10. And as I'm driving, I see a big tarp with shoes outside of it covering the body. And I lose my mind. I'm literally screaming at this guy on the phone. I was like, you liar, you lied to me. Why am I here right now? You said this didn't happen. Why did you lie to me? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just not answering my concerns about the issue because he literally straight up lied to me over the phone. I think in a sense like to try and get there because he doesn't really know the story either or like who did it. So obviously he just needed me to get there, I think. Anyway, still really salty that he flipping lied to me because that was even more traumatizing than him just telling me the truth, I think. So he's like, you see the officers there, they know I'm calling you, they're gonna take it from here. So I pull in, the officer starts interviewing me and I tell them exactly what I saw, like what I'm telling you guys. And at first she's gaining information, but then she starts asking questions like, how fast were you going? Were you wearing your seatbelt? I'm like, okay, that's because you don't know who did it. You're trying to think if I could do it, which I get. They're just doing their job. I don't. Retelling the story is super traumatic. I tried to like push it back to the back of my brain for months now, but anyway. So this is happening right near a gas station. So the gas station employees are like kind of nosy. So they go outside and they see me being interviewed. And I am a very sensitive person and I show my emotions very, very easily. It's very hard for me to kind of hide them, I think, especially when I'm like wound up, like really upset. I'll start, crying or whatever. Mainly crying. I cry a lot. So these girls that work at the gas station just see a crying girl, see a dead body, see a bunch of cop cars, and then start making some connections in their head, and then they start filming me. As soon as I saw that, I told the cop, I was like, they're filming me. If this gets posted on social media and goes viral or whatever, that's gonna look bad because I didn't do anything, and even if my name is cleared, it's still going to be associated with the video that they saw and all this stuff, and it would just be a disaster. At that point, I would flip and get a lawyer and sue for like defamation or slander, whatever. I was waiting for a while, but then they came back and said they didn't need to do a second interview, and the reason is because they found out what happened and who did it. So remember at the beginning of the story when I said I saw a car pulled over to the side? So apparently that belonged to the guy who was driving, and that guy that was driving is the one that hit the now deceased person. So that guy didn't do a hit and run. He called the police and told them about it, and there were also other witnesses that called too, not just me. So the ruling was this: Florida is a no-fault state, and I don't exactly know what that means, but from what they were describing it in terms of like related to the incident, so the driver was determined to be not at fault because he was just driving normally, and the guy that is now deceased was the one that just randomly walked onto the street. So after the police ruled me out as a suspect, found out who actually did it and what happened, I literally turned to the police and I was like, well, I'm traumatized now. Actually. So do you guys offer free therapy for what I went through? Because I'm gonna need it. So the police officer gives me like this pamphlet thing that includes numbers for like Attorney General hotline for counseling related things after an incident. So when I'm able to, I immediately call and I was like, hey, I'm traumatized from this flipping incident. Can you guys give me some therapy, offer anything? And the lady says, are you the victim? No, ma'am, otherwise I wouldn't be calling you right now. The victim is in fact deceased. Are you related to the victim? No, I'm not related to the victim. Oh, then you can't get counseling. Well, I'm traumatized, so what am I supposed to do? And they were basically like, there's nothing we can do about it. So here I am in a completely new state, new apartment. My boyfriend just left to go back to Seattle across the country, and I just had to deal with it because at this point, which I will get into, I could not afford therapy. So for a solid week, I had such a hard time eating anything, but for a solid week, I like couldn't eat any like meat. As soon as I tried, I just immediately thought back to that instance. I don't know why my brain that made that connection. And it was so hard to do anything or sleep because my brain would just immediately shift to the incident. I literally had to call people at all times to be like, hey, can we just like talk, kind of get my mind off things like for a while. So that is a summary of my first 2 weeks in Florida. I'm just thinking about how long this video is gonna be. I'm gonna really try and speed it up from here, but there are just so many more things that happen. And my phone's about to die. I feel like my phone is about to die in every single flipping video of mine. Welcome back, Jess. So originally I moved to Florida with the intent of, one, getting out of Seattle and just experiencing a new environment. Like that's why I originally moved out of Illinois going to college, because I was like, I just need to get the heck out of here. I'm gonna choose the furthest state possible. Then when I experienced Seattle, I was like, I gotta get the heck out of here. I'm gonna choose the furthest state possible, which is literally flipping Florida. But another reason I chose to move to Florida is because I got accepted to do the Disney college program. They call it an internship, but basically it's just working for the company full time, which I will make a separate video about because otherwise this video is gonna be 4 hours long. But I originally did the DCP as just kind of like a fun break from STEM, something entirely different than anything I've ever done before. I really like Disney, so I thought, why not? But a main reason professionally, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the DCP, I'm gonna get a professional internship in communication and storytelling, and then I'm gonna use that experience, it being in Florida, to shift it to getting a communications, public affairs role type at NASA. That was kind of like the plan I thought of, which in hindsight, that was never gonna work, but I just believed in it at the time. The main issue is that I set my start date to be October 12th, something like that, something in the middle of October. But it was, beginning of September, and I thought it was gonna take me like at least a month or two to settle in. It took me, like 2 weeks before I was like, okay, I'm bored, and also I have no money to do things that I was gonna do in my free time. This was one of the first times I've ever been like broke. Like I don't think I've actually ever been broke other than this time where it was in fact the worst ever. I had no savings and I barely had any money in my checking account because I had to use so much of it for moving costs, shipping my car, which, I totally forgot to mention that story. Which reminds me of another story. So another reason why I had to move out of Seattle, I wanted to talk about it at the time, but I couldn't because it was an ongoing investigation. Anyway, it involved this sexual harassment, stalker type situation. So I needed to get out of Seattle immediately at the time, which luckily it was when it happened, not luckily, but I guess luckily it happened like right before I was leaving. So at least I could like get out of it and not have to stay in Washington anymore while it was going on. So there was that. Oh yeah. So that was one sexual harassment incident, and then we get into the second sexual harassment incident, which happened not even a week later. My car was getting shipped from Seattle to Florida because I didn't want to drive it because it gets super motion sick. I just didn't want to wear in my car, etc. Basically, in summary, the guy who was shipping my car said some questionable things to me in person, and then used the phone number he had on file to send me some more questionable comments to me, and then knew my address I was moving to and started driving my car there. So I told the driving company about it right away. I was like, your driver just did some super unprofessional, really inappropriate stuff. So what are you gonna do about it? First off, they were saying things like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, that shouldn't have happened. We'll look into this right away. Then what happens, after I tell them about that, after I tell the driving company about that guy, which my car was already late anyway because of some delays or whatever, I find out my car is gonna be delayed even further. Come to find out, my car, which made it more than a quarter of the way to Florida, had to be driven all the way back and was sitting in their lot for a few days. They say it was because of another reason, but interesting timing. Interesting timing with the whole situation there, that my car just randomly got turned back. Honestly, to this day, I feel like the guy was reprimanded a little bit and was like, fine, I'm not driving our car, and then drove it back. I was not about to accept my car being so late for delivery and being sexually harassed for free. So I literally pestered this driving company and I gave them an ultimatum and I was like, you're either gonna give me money for what I went through or you're gonna give me money for what I went through because yeah, no, you're giving me money, basically. So they ended up giving me around like $400 for the fiasco that I went through to just kind of, you know, end it there and not keep pursuing it further. I did in fact take the money, which was not that much given how much I had to pay to actually ship my car and how much I had to pay in rental car fees while I was waiting for my car. But that's a quick little story time on that. So back to the original plot line, as I was saying, I had a DCP start date of middle of October. At this point, it's like around the first few weeks of September, and I was so broke and I was so bored, so I needed a job. So I ended up applying and getting hired at Plato's Closet, which is a chain second-hand store. I'm so sorry to have to keep saying this, but I have to make a separate video talking about my experience at Plato's Closet because I feel like there's so much I could say about the pros and cons. I did it for a bit and I was a retail associate, but then I got promoted to being a shift manager within like my first month of being there, and then I was also the chosen social media content producer too, which is cool because that's like I was doing that kind of stuff anyway with my own, you know, thrifting business. Did that for a while, and then eventually it was time to start my DCP, which again, so sorry, but that has to be a whole other video. Again, this video would be like 10 hours long if I mentioned that whole thing. So I started my DCP, but I also kept my Plato's job, and my work schedule was literally so insane. I didn't have days off. During that month of September, it was severe budgeting, okay? I did not have a lot of money for food. If you like look back at videos like on my TikTok or whatever, for me during that month, I was very skinny, okay? And the real reason I was very skinny was not because I had an eating disorder, okay? It's because I couldn't afford food. So there's that. I met this one girl who's my next door neighbor when I moved to Florida, and her and I are really close. She's literally gonna be a bridesmaid at like my wedding in the future. But she was one of the main reasons I was even like a little bit healthy in eating, because she would just cook for me and make sure it was fed. Other than that, I literally can't afford food. And when I say literally couldn't afford food, I had to eat at the food pantry. It was my first time going to a food pantry that wasn't like the UW one, and I just had to eat what they gave me. But I'm really grateful that a thing like that existed. And you might be watching this and being like, girl, you live in such an expensive apartment. What do you mean you can't afford food? Just live somewhere cheaper. Obviously. But you can't just like get up and leave an apartment with no costs associated with it. Considering I had no money for food, what made you think I had any money to pay the move out fees? None. So I had to stick that out. Anyway, we make it to the start of my DCP, and I still needed a lot of money at this time. So I was doing the DCP and I was at Be Our Guest, which again, I'll get into a separate video, but they give full-time hours. So I was working full-time there, and then I was working all the other hours that I had in a week at Plato's. So either I would do the opening shift into the afternoon at Plato's and then go straight to Disney and work the night shift, or I would work a double at Disney. And it was so rare for me to have a full day off. Honestly, I can't even remember having more than like 5 full days off during that time period. I was lucky enough to just have either a morning or an afternoon off, which did not happen regularly. So a few months in, I literally have no free time because I'm working Plato's, I'm working Disney, and what do I decide to do? Think realistically. What would Jess do in the situation? Of course she would get a third job. How I got this job is a story in itself. And what was the job, you may ask? Think to Jessica's personality, what she likes to do for fun. She got a job as a bartender. If you haven't watched my videos, you wouldn't know this, but that whole section right there was in complete irony because I don't drink at all. So why the fridge would I be a bartender? But I became one. Skipping a lot of the storyline, but then I got a 4th job. I literally cannot be making this up right now, guys. And at this point in the story, I'm just kind of over like working jobs unrelated to what I studied in school. They weren't really jobs that were challenging me like academically. You know, they were challenging me mentally, like for sure. Physically, for sure. But in terms of like academically, it wasn't quite challenging me because they just weren't, you know, academic related jobs, if that makes sense, or STEM related jobs. So I was like, okay, I want to go find a job related to STEM in any capacity. So then I got a job at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex as an educator. So at this point, I have 4 jobs. I mean, seriously, like what could go wrong when you overload yourself with way too many things on your plate and you don't have time for family, friends, relationships, stuff like that? Nothing could go wrong. Like I've never experienced it before, so I just, you know, didn't think much of it. Anyways, obviously this kind of schedule was doomed from the start, so I ended up quitting Plato's and I ended up self-terming from my DCP. So since about April, I've just been sticking to the bartending position and the educator position, but it is the same schedule as it was with like Plato's and Disney, in the sense that I have not had a full day off in so long, other than the quick vacation I took to Illinois recently. And I'm lucky if I even have a morning or an afternoon off. Hence why I'm filming this video right now. I was off at my bartending position today because I switched my shifts. So of course I already worked an 8-hour shift this morning. If you guys follow me on Instagram, very recently, very briefly, I posted a little collage I made of like what I've been up to since graduating, and it was all like space related things I've been doing with the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation and then my job at the Kennedy Space Center. I posted it and just let it be, and then after a while when I looked back at it, I realized I had a grammatical error. Little did I know this tiny grammatical error would send me into the crazy spiral that it did. One, because, you know, my social media brain, I was like, oh my gosh, 200 people already saw it. People already commented on it. It's kind of too late now to just, you know, archive it and go back, because I would lose that interaction. But then if I don't archive it, my grammatical error will stay on there, and I was just so embarrassed because I was making a post about all this cool stuff I did, and I'm a rocket scientist, and I'm an astrophysicist who clearly doesn't flipping proofread their work before they submit it. So I was in quite a lot of distress. So I ended up just archiving it, which is so stupid because really the social media thing did not matter that much. Like, I'm sure no one really cared that much that I made a spelling error. Little did I know that this event would send me into like a full-fledged panic attack, and I haven't had one of those in a long, long time. It was in the car when I realized I made that error, and then by the time I got to Trader Joe's, I was like having a full-blown panic attack in Trader Joe's as they're about to close. It took me so long to get out of the panic attack, and obviously having it in public was not an ideal situation. I kept like fiddling with my fingers, playing with my hair, and I felt like someone was stepping on my chest. A simple social media post sent me into like an existential crisis, because I remember last year when I posted about overcoming so many harsh social media comments I got, and, you know, graduating college. When I posted that on Instagram, I got like a majority of positive comments, but I got another negative comment related to that post where they were like, you shouldn't talk about the negative things you experience to other people. You should just keep your mouth shut, get over it with God, essentially was what the message was saying. So that comment kind of took me back to how I used to feel before I started, you know, being more vulnerable about my situation on social media, in a sense where I like had to show such a perfect image of myself and be the best at everything and present myself as the best person ever. So then when I posted that collage on social media, like while all of those things were true, it's like I was presenting myself to be not better than I actually am, but presenting myself in a way that was, you know, displaying emotions of, you know, being so accomplished and I got it all figured out and I'm totally happy and confident with how things are going. So the attitude I was conveying on social media was just so far from the reality of how I'm feeling like actually in this moment and how I felt over the past year, but especially over the past few months. I'm so tired, I'm so overworked, I'm so miserable. I feel so much sadness, so much anxiety. I keep watching clips from Inside Out 2 and it's stressing me out. I didn't like the first movie of Inside Out because I feel like it was calling me out too much, and now watching part of Inside Out 2, where's joy at in here? It's literally anxiety, sadness running the show. So I don't know if I'm gonna watch the movie. Don't think I can handle it. Honestly, I'm feeling a lot better now to just kind of like get these emotions off my chest and talk to someone, even though you guys are, you know, virtual and you guys aren't really like talking back right in this moment. But that's, you know, a main reason why I do YouTube and why I love it and why I really need to go back to it is because I'm able to talk, like be my true self and like talk about myself and get things off my chest and kind of get over those emotions that have been weighing me down so much. So even though it seems like I'm doing well, like, I just feel so sad all the time. So many negative emotions all the time. I'm like, is this gonna be like this forever? Am I never gonna experience like being genuinely happy and content with things? Like, am I always gonna feel like this? I don't know if I told you guys this, but I went to a psychiatrist once and they told me I had an adjustment disorder, but I feel like this is more than that. I don't know, maybe this is what that is, but I don't know. So as much as I wanted things to get better right out of college, I've just been experiencing so much doubt. I don't know if this was what you just experienced as a young 20-year-old, but this flipping sucks. So a lot of the negative emotions I'm experiencing is largely due to, you know, like being overworked and not having time for like family, friends, my relationship, my cats, like the things that matter most to me. I don't have time for stuff like this, but there's been other things that have been weighing me down too. This didn't happen that much to me when I was in high school, I feel like, but nowadays, like in my early 20s, especially right now, like at 23, it feels so much like envy towards, you know, other girls and how they look, and so much like self-hatred like towards how I look, which is so sucky. I've never had this much like self-doubt and like lack of confidence before. I don't know, I'm just used to always being very confident. So having this, I'm like, man, I don't like this. Like I just look in the mirror and I'm like, wow, you look bad today. You don't look very skinny. Like, why is your stomach like that? Your skin looks so bad today. No clothes ever look good on you. When me and my boyfriend went shopping to find clothes for an event that I had at the end of May, I started crying and flipping Aritzia because I thought every single item looked so bad on me, and I was like, I'm hideous, why is this happening? But yeah, basically over the past few months, I've been experiencing just so much like self-hatred and like being really, really hard on myself, especially over my physical appearance and especially over like my body type right now. And another thing I've been experiencing is like, I don't think ageism is the right word, or like inferiority complex related to ageism. I don't know, where I feel like I'm, you know, so far behind other people my age or younger. Like I played as closet, the assistant store manager was my age, but everyone else that was just a regular associate like me was like 15, 16, 17. And at my bartending job, the assistant manager is literally my age when I'm just, you know, a normal staff member. And I feel like, especially because I'm not where I want to be right now, I'm feeling so much more fear related to my age, like fear of getting older, because I'm, you know, feel like I'm falling behind in a sense. Like it's so different being now than when I was younger, because when I was younger, I was so far ahead, so good at school, I was good at sports, like there was so much I felt like was going for me, so I never had to worry about this. But now that I'm 23, it feels like the opposite. So it's just like I don't know how to handle it. That is not exactly how I wanted this video to go, but it's, you know, the truth. It's what's going on in my life right now as a fresh 23-year-old who is just trying to figure out adulthood. That is so cringe. It flipping sounds like an indie movie, coming of age movie. I think that is all I'm gonna be putting in this video, because I still have to go through the footage and edit it, and I don't know when the next day off I'm gonna have is, so I just wanna try my best to finish it tonight.
I am way too optimistic. I am such a liar. I am recording this audio literally 2 months later. That's when I finally had the time to edit it. And you want to know why I have the day off? It's because I have flipping COVID. I have to tell you guys, so much has happened in the past few months. I'll make a new video soon. Maybe not.
Obviously, there are so many other story times and details that I left out that I want to tell you guys about, but that will come soon when I have a day off. Fingers crossed at some point, eventually. In the meantime, feel free to leave any comments or questions you may have, or things you want me to talk about in future videos, so I can kind of look back at them when I do have the free time and kind of go from there. I think that was probably one of my more depressing videos, honestly, but whatever. Gotta keep it real here. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.